Hi, I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell, and I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. This is the beginning of the Epistemology series. The book is Sosa and Kim, and this is the Blackwell Philosophy Anthologies in Epistemology. I'm going to be using this book to guide our analysis for the next several hours. I anticipate the series, it could be anywhere from 20 hours to 20 hours to 50 hours. The Nietzsche series has taken me to this point, I think a year, if not a little less, a little more, to get to the halfway point in Nietzsche. We're 55 hours into the lecture. The Epistemology series, I would imagine, is not going to be as long as what I've already done with respect to Nietzsche, but I do anticipate the series being rather extensive. It's going to be a lot of information I have to cover. And I'm going to try, as always, to cover it as thoroughly and methodically as possible. The one caveat with respect to epistemology, for those who know a little bit about philosophy, they probably know about ethics and epistemology. And for those who know or have some understanding of epistemology, the first question is, well, what epistemological role do you think this plays in that? Or do you agree that there's an external world or not? Or what do you think about perception and concept formation and so on and so on? I'm really not interested in any of that discourse at all. When I present the information from the text, I will be presenting the information as if I subscribed to the author's position. So if we're talking about Berkeleyan subjective idealism, I am going to assume and I'm going to present the information as if the external world was not real. And then if I do, for example, G. Moore's critique, then I'm going to present the material as if, duh, here are my hands, there is an external world, let's move on. So, irrespective of my personal epistemological stance, I'm not going to allow my personal beliefs to inform the lecture series. I would encourage you, as a viewer, to do the same. Don't allow your personal assumptions of epistemology form your interpretation of the material, right? So again, this is going to be several hours, 20-hour minimum contribution to epistemology. This could potentially be longer than Nietzsche series. That's 50 plus hours now. The only reason is that, this is an anthology, so in a sense, I'm looking at individual authors' seminal texts, and individual authors and their individual work and contributions to epistemology and philosophy. So theoretically, this could be a very, very long series. I'm just going to keep doing it until I get the vibe to stop, and I'm guaranteeing a minimum of 20 hours. Okay, so with that, you guys know how this works. I've got several hundred hours worth of lectures up in cyberspace already. For those of you who are watching this for the first time, the PDFs, my lecture notes are available. Just click the link in the description field. It'll take you to my site. You can download immediately. The PDF is an attachment. Every time you come back to watch the series, I have people who've been watching the series for a year or so in my other series. Make sure you check to make sure that the PDF has been updated, because I update this frequently. And this is just one of many lectures that I give and many documents that are perpetually in sort of revision. So this is a living document. It changes as the lecture series progresses. Alright, so let's begin. This is going to be section 1. And again, this is going to be Sosa and Kim's Epistemology and Anthology from Blackwell. And this is Epistemology. Alright, my marker, I need to buy some new markers today. And this is section 1. And this is just going to be this is the first video in the series, so it's going to be a very general discussion to begin. Again, as I said, check your beliefs at the door, have an open mind, approach this series with the intent to learn something new, and you should be fine. Also, the entire series is going to be dedicated to Invincible Numinist, so this entire series is a dedication to Invincible Numinist. Check out his channel. Also, Secular Numinist, he's got a split personality, but in cyberspace, I would imagine that what happens in the real world follows you in cyberspace. Okay, so what is epistemology? What? Okay, so here comes a direct quote from the text, the introduction to the text. Epistemology is the philosophical inquiry into the nature, condition, and extent of human knowledge. The nature, the conditions, and the extent of human knowledge. So what we're interested in is human, and it's the nature of human knowledge, right? When we talk about the nature of human knowledge, we want to come to understand how it is that we process information, right? How is it that human beings acquire and process information? How is it that we sort information? How do we organize information? We'll talk about, as the lecture series goes on, all the various aspects with respect to sort of the epistemological nature of human knowledge. But the idea is we want to understand how this information is interpreted, internalized, understood, and such. Second is the condition. The condition of human knowledge. Once we have knowledge, and we put that in scare quotes, right? The best that we have sometimes are inferences to the best explanation. Sometimes we have demonstrable fact in terms of sort of, in some sense, scientific fact, and definitely mathematical axiomatic proofs. But what is the condition of our knowledge? I have this set of principles, I have these set of beliefs. Once I have an understanding of these principles and beliefs, what is the condition of my relationship to my belief, right? And we'll talk a lot later in the lecture series about the relationship between the individual agent as knowing and his or her actions based on what you assume to be true, right? Obviously, if you assume a certain condition, a certain state of affairs to be true, then your beliefs in that state of affairs is effectively going to condition the way in which you behave in the world, right? So if you perceive the world to be a very hostile, a very threatening state, you might withdraw from the world. If you perceive the world to be very hostile and threatening, and you're a combative person, you might be very aggressive to compete with that threat. This is going to vary for individuals, and with respect to epistemology, we're not interested per se in the individual, though it's extremely important. What we're more interested in is the condition and the relationship between the individual and the contents of the individual's beliefs, right? So that's something we'll talk about later. And then finally, the extent. Right? What are the limits? When you push it as hard as you can push it, right? What are the limits of human knowledge? What is it that we can do? What is it that we can think? What are the things that we cannot think? We'll talk about later contradictions, ideas, and attempts to conceptualize simultaneously the circle square. Is that an extent to human knowledge? We'll talk about conditions of possibility, possible existence, actual existence, probable existence, the distinction between possibility and probability, and so on and so on. Right? All of these sort of macro level concepts are going to inform the way in which perceivers, agents, act in the world, right? And the question is, what is the limit? What is the extent of human knowledge? And the idea for all epistemologists, for all philosophers, for all scientists, is to push it to the limit. Push our capacity to know to the actual brink, to the point where further conceptualization leads to contradiction. You want to push it right to that point. You want to figure out how far can we really push our understanding of the world, and that's a seminal account in epistemology, right? This is, again, super general introduction. All right. So next point is knowledge acquisition is in part contingent on. This is just in part, right? When we talk about acquiring knowledge, knowledge itself is contingent on some of these things. one of the last videos